Saddle up, you guys. We are here for a real treat with my guest today, Steve Rother, the horse teacher. Steve is an internationally acclaimed clinician and a multi-time winner of the main event Trainers Challenge Colts starting competition. He's not just a horse teacher, he teaches us, the people, to be better, to do better for our horses. So without further ado, I am thrilled to introduce you to Steve. Steve, thank you so much for joining us on the Wealthy Acre. I know it's a really busy time of year with clinics and camps, and I really, really appreciate that you are here. So, first thing I want to dive in, which I know that you don't talk about, and I'm almost afraid to ask, but you don't talk about your childhood, your
Yeah.
upbringing. And let's start with your parents, your upbringing. Where did you grow up?
Yeah. I didn't really grow up with a horse background. I had some family members that had horses, and my parents weren't into horses. My dad was kind of a truck driver slash maintenance guy at a trucking company, and my mom was a secretary for the school district. And but ironically, looking back, like as a kid, I was kind of always like I was interested in horses from the very beginning. Like I had the cowboy boots in like kindergarten and first grade, and like there was some influence there apparently. Uh, but I was always like, man, I can't believe like I grew up in town here, and this just sucks and stuff. But looking back, there was a lot of lessons to be learned there to benefit everything that I do now. Um, I always think if my mom was particularly had been a horse person, like a lot of the lessons that she taught me growing up would have fit very well. And I often refer to a lot of the things that she had taught me when I was younger in my horsemanship. Maybe not necessarily like this is what my mom taught me, but like um, just thinking about like the principles that she taught and then putting them into the horsemanship. And then, being in town, ironically, like I grew up just wanting to like ride horses, right? Like it wasn't, I think, like a lot of people, it wasn't very specific at first.
Mm-hmm.
And come to find out, like all that people exposure actually helps in this job quite a bit because my job is probably, even though it's horses every day, it's probably 80% people. So if I didn't have some of that early experience around lots of different people, I think my job would be harder than it already is. So yeah, but then they were good. Like my parents were always about like, hey, like you can do what you want, but you're gonna have to earn it and figure it out. We'll do what we can to provide opportunities for you. So when I uh, early, like 10 years old or so, there was some YMCA camps, and they had horses there, a horsemanship program. So I don't know what I did to twist my mom's arm because it was extra money to do the horsemanship section compared to just the normal camp. She got me signed up for those, so I spent time there, um, and then moved into the Boy Scouts, and the Boy Scouts had a horse program as well. And one of my first experiences with them, they have what's called a horse trek, and you take the horses from their summer camp or their winter camp, and they ride them instead of trailering them between the two. So there's two of those a year. And I just turned 14 and went out on that, and it's almost a 200-mile trek, so like 170 miles or something, 9 days out in the woods, sleeping under the stars, and just kind of not full roughing it, but for a kid back then, it felt that way. And I kind of felt like, man, like if I go up here and I do good, this could be the thing. But I feel like my parents were like, if he goes up there, he's going to hate it and he's going to come back normal. But ever since then, I stuck with it because I ended up getting a job out there at that same ranch and just sticking with it. So,
Wow. So it seems like horses were, even though they weren't part of your life, you made it part of your life since you were very young and it was something you were
yeah.
drawn to. Do you remember an instance when that became a thing? Because like even for me, I remember growing up obviously in Poland as a kid. And I don't know, there was something I dreamt about horses. Like this was something
Hmm.
so ingrained in me since I was a child. Mind you, we grew up on a little bit of a homestead, but it was something about the horses that really drew me in. And it was something I couldn't explain. It was something since I was like as far as I remember. Now, do you remember an instant when it became about horses for you?
Yeah, like I remember early on, like the first time, I think it was at a family reunion get together, and one of the cousins had a horse there, a couple, and I just like remember like walking up to that animal, and it's like this is something else. Like this, everything just went whoof. And watching movies or whatever, there was that attraction for sure, but it definitely was super deep there in the beginning. Not really an outlet for it, but I do remember one time as a kid, like I'd been to a few camps in the YMCA and different things, but I think I was 12 and I was at the first Boy Scout camp, and you could go down and earn merit badges, right? So there was a horsemanship merit badge, and um, I remember the first time I went down there and one of the wranglers was on a horse, and I'm like obviously showing interest in this whole thing, and he reaches down from his horse and he picks me up and he puts me on that horse in front of him, and it's like this is what I want. And it wasn't just like the horse, like because I'd ridden horses before then, but I was like, this guy is cool. Like he's got like this presence, and like he has this cool job, and like he like just the whole thing. And I was like, that would be cool if I could be that person, to some extent.
Yeah.
I don't even remember who this guy was, but it had an impact on me when I felt those
Wow.
things. And throughout my career, I felt moments like that. I'd be around a certain mentor or ride a certain horse or be at a certain horse show or something. And I was like, this is what I want. Like once I felt it, and then my time would be kind of pushed in that direction, like my thoughts and my efforts and things. And then pretty soon, a lot of those things started to manifest themselves.
That's awesome. And this is totally off topic, but what was your favorite movies? Because I know we're very similar, kind of in
Oh,
age, maybe 5 year gap. But I am
yeah.
thinking we probably watched the same movies that
Oh, for
like
sure.
just fell in love with it growing up, right?
I would say the biggest one in the beginning would have been like the Black Stallion, because like it had a boy in it and he had this like impossible journey and overcome the odds, and then it was like him figuring it out on his own, and then he goes and does some big stuff and finds a mentor. And I like that whole storyline there,
I loved it.
for sure. And then just about all the others since then. That was probably the
Mhm.
biggest one for me. And then I like the Man from Snowy River one. I feel like the storyline there. It's almost like the overcoming odds type storyline,
Mhm.
right? He's up in the mountains and they're not accepting him, so he gets kicked out, and he's down here and he's got to get accepted there, and he's back, and all the
I love
stuff,
it.
right? So,
I love it.
yeah,
Yeah, for me, it was all about the movies. Like I watched
yeah,
everything because we didn't have the means to have a horse when we moved to Canada or be able to do lessons or anything like that. We just
hmm,
didn't have the means being an immigrant family. But it was such a passion for me, so I wanted to watch every show. Like every horse that went by, I just wanted to go and stop and look at it, and just like everything. It was just such a passion. So I get that, and I love that you started young, and this is such a passion, and you're continuing with it. I think you
yeah,
didn't
for
lose
sure.
that dream. And that's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I got a chance to meet your dad actually, which was awesome. So he seems like a really nice man. He's helping
He
you
really
out
is.
there.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love having my dad here, and it's just kind of worked out that way. My mom passed away a few years ago, and he made the move up here, bought a place down the road, but I get to see him most every day or pretty close to, and it's
Hmm.
just real nice having him around. Yeah.
I'm so sorry to hear about your mom, but it is great that you have your dad close. And how did you get into horse training? Now, it's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to own a horse because I love horses, but you went
Hmm.
beyond and you're like, ah, now I'm going to help everybody else own horses and do well by them. And who were your mentors? How did you get into horses? What happened? How did this all begin?
Getting into into the training was interesting. So, when I'd worked on that ranch, the first ranch that I was at there in Oregon, um, almost all the horses were either donated or bought just above canner price. So if you kind of think about it, it's like, okay, these animals basically aren't wanted or aren't needed somewhere else. So what that probably means is most of them, not all of them, but most of them are coming in as like needing work, okay, in some
Hmm.
aspect. Because if you're buying them, $1 above canner price, there's probably a reason they're not valued at more, right? And same with
Yeah.
the donations. There's probably something going on. So in order to get those horses ready for the ranch, there was a lot of training involved with that. And I didn't know what I know now as far as for training, but just understanding like this horse needs to be better. So there were certain processes they taught us and ways to go about it. And in that, you're at that age, you're making a ton of mistakes, a ton of different mistakes. So I started to get curious about the process. It's like, oh, like why am I getting bucked off at this horse, and why is he kicking me, and why is he throwing me to the ground? Like, what's causing it? Is it me? Is it him? Is it the environment? Is it the other horses?
Hmm.
Just running all these scenarios and trying to figure that out. And then so that got me started. But then when I went to college, I went to get an ag business degree. But the college I went to, most of the kids were coming from either farms or ranches, and they were potentially going back home to those very same farms or ranches. So imagine you're sitting in a classroom with 30, 50 students, and they're all heading back to some big outfit, and they're just learning some of the newer stuff so they can go home and help the parents. And I'm sitting there, I'm basically the only kid in class that doesn't have that. Like, I don't have the background where I'm going. So I went into my professor, and as we advanced along in the classes, we had to start like making your own plan of like how are you going to like take your farm and get it better for your family and use that as a project. And I was like, hey, I don't have anything here, and I'm not going to be going that route either. Like, I'm not buying a 10,000 acre ranch probably because I got like $12 to my name. So could I create a horse training program and still pass this class? And he's like, yeah, I just need to see some form of business structure here. So as that, I went out and I started my own horse training program in college, down near the fairgrounds. I rented out a little paddock, found some horses, did, kind of put it all together. And that's what really started the business. And ironically, it was funny, like back then, I was like, how do I make this happen? Like the rodeo kids were renting, I don't remember the exact numbers, but say they're renting a paddock for $200 a month for board at the fairgrounds. And I was like, man, $200 a month. If I had two horses, that's 400. I'm like, that's a lot of money. Even though like maybe the clients are paying for it, but I'm like, well, but if trying to get clients and I'm already throwing them a $200 bill, how do I figure this out? So long story short, I found a place next door for $50 for a paddock that could hold two. So I'm like $25 a horse. Okay, now I can charge a certain rate, right? So, and then have a little less overhead. And it's like, but I need clients. How do I figure this out? So I ended up finding one like word of mouth, and I trained the ever living daylights out of that horse for a month. And then I took it and I rode it through the neighborhood. It's kind of a country-ish neighborhood, and I went door to door, every place that had a horse in the backyard. I'd stop, I'd tie that horse up to the front tree or whatever. I'd go knock on the door, and I'd have my little presentation. I was like, hey, I got this horse here. I can show you what I can do with a horse in 30 days. Do you guys need any lessons? Do you need your horse trained, etc.? And surprisingly, I come home with some business after a few days of that. So it's kind of how it all started.
Wow. You were
Yeah.
really an entrepreneur. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Forced into the fire.
So that would have been like 30 years ago.
So that put me in college there at about 20, 21 years old. They're doing that because I graduated at 22. So
And
yeah.
throughout the years, I'm assuming you had some mentors. So there's some really great old trainers. Who were those? Let's name drop some of those guys.
Yeah, so when I was in college there, I was fortunate. I run into some kids there in college, and they knew some of the locals. So one of the first guys that I run into is a guy named Stuart Schultz, and he's kind of an unknown in the horse industry because he just kind of kept it low key and local. But he was actually a very talented Liberty and bridleless riding guy, come to find out. So he took me under the wing as much as I could be with him to learn some of that stuff. And then I had heard about Ray Hunt before this, but he was like, because I was like, where did you learn some of this? He's like, oh, I learned this from Ray Hunt. And I was like, Ray Hunt? Because I'd heard of him and some people had been around him a little bit. And he's like, oh, yeah, and he comes here local. And so Once I heard about that, I got over there and started riding with him when he was in town doing clinics. So,
Wow.
yep,
So you really got a lot of good education, good mentorship, and
yep,
now you are the mentor, which is amazing.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of worked out that way.
And
So,
you're in Hunters, Washington right now. You got yourself a
yep.
gorgeous property, 70 beautiful acres. How did that come about? It used to be, was it a, what was it before?
It was kind of, they were trying to make it into a feedlot, but they
Mm-hmm.
hadn't quite finished it. And the guy that owned it owned this property and a couple others around it. He'd gathered up some places. So I ended up buying this place and one lot just down the road from here. And he had to move for some family stuff back east. So he was just dropping everything kind of and going. So I moved in to the ranch here when I was 32. Um, and it was just kind of in limbo. It wasn't really finished for a feedlot. It wasn't really set up for a horse facility, but it had a lot of potential. And what I was looking for is a place that didn't have a house on it, um, mainly because of cost. I was like, if I can find a nice ranch without a house, whatever, like same thing as like figuring out the stall situation for the horses. Like, how do I make this work? So I moved in and just kind of, it was Jimmy rigged quite a bit for a while, but we've solidified it quite a bit now and made it work for what clients need here. And I remember the first time I come out here, I'd been shopping for years and years and years. Every time I'd pull into a town, I'd get like the real estate magazine, and then I'd look at it and it'd be like 5.6 million. I was like, "Duh." And it's like 10.5 million. It's like,
Shy.
"Duh." And so and then when I rolled up through this county, I was like, "Oh, that's a real nice place." I was like, "It's affordable." And then there's another place that's affordable, and there's another place like that's kind of affordable. And I hadn't seen the places, but in the write up, I was like, "Man, maybe something could happen here." So there was a real estate agent at the clinic at the time. And so I just kind of asked her, I was like, hey, kind of shopping around. She's like, oh, let's go the day after the clinic. I'll show you some places. And she says, I got this one place. You probably won't be interested in it, but it fits all the things on your list. And she hadn't been here either. She's looking at it, and I was like, yeah, I don't know if that place would work or not just off the photos because they had kind of done a drive-by type thing, real estate at
Hmm.
instead of like the drone and all the stuff, right? It was just
Yeah,
like,
back in
here's
the
a
day, it
picture
was
from
very
the road.
different. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I got here and I rolled in. I was like, man, this place is not good from right when I pulled in. And then I was like, I'm going to go take a look around. Like this place supposedly has some acreage on it. So I walked out and around, walked down to the creek and other pastures, and it just got better and better and better as I walked around. And I'd come with some folks that day and they stayed up top where like the real estate photos were, and the barns had been a feedlot, so the feed bunks were all full of hay and manure and the cattle, and it was fences were all crooked or whatever. It wasn't horrible or anything, but it definitely didn't look like it does now. And I says, "What do you guys think?" And they're like, "Don't do it. Don't buy this place. Like that's our recommendation. Do not buy this place." And I was like,
Hmm.
"This is great. You guys didn't go down below. Like this is fantastic." So anyway, long story short, I ended up here, and
I love
it's
it.
turned out real good. So.
You've done an amazing job there. I mean, you have the indoor arena, you have the outdoor arena, you have the round pen, there's a creek, there's a field, there's trails,
Mm-hmm.
it's just, it's an incredible place. And you saw that vision. And I absolutely love that. We kind of did that with our property too, because it was all forested. So it's like we had to have a vision to say, okay, well, how are we going to make it work with horses and all these
Mm-hmm.
different things that we want to do?
Yep.
So it's definitely takes like it takes a special person to be like, okay, I can figure this out. Everything is
Yep.
doable.
Yep.
You have
For
the
sure.
location, you have the place. It's just all doable. And you have a
Mm-hmm.
gorgeous place. You have cabins for people to stay. It's really I feel blessed that you are sharing it with your students and you're sharing and you're having people stay there and learn. And it's such a beautiful environment to do that in. So I appreciate it. And I know a lot of people do too.
Yeah, and that was my main goal in getting it is like I could have earlier on I could have said, well, I'm just going to get say 5 acres, flat ground, single wide trailer, little shop or whatever
Hmm.
in a neighborhood with other 5 acre places or whatever. Like I could have done that long time ago, and maybe as an investor that would have been a great idea. But I held off because I wanted a place that people could come and enjoy and like create an experience. That means it probably needed better scenery than some of the places. It needed a different type of acreage, something with some variety, potentially the creek, and like that just has more presence to it. And so that to me was pretty hard to find unless you were like going to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, or different places that are obviously have that kind of beauty already. But then they also had price tags, and you got the distances and all the things. So I was really excited when I did find this place because I knew like once it was put together, the clients would really like it.
It's really special. And I find that it's very much almost about the horses over there. It's very much about the
Mm-hmm.
horse. And
Yep, yep,
it's not, about even your accommodations. Like everything is very modest, but the horses have it all there. So it's a
yep,
beautiful place
yep.
for us and horses and for us to spend the time with our horses. So again, really, really appreciate you doing that. And I think it's just a beautiful thing for us to be able to kind of get away from the crazy of life and be able to just spend it with our horses and learn from you. So going to learning about horses, let's dive into that. I know from my experience with my horse and kind of still learning so much. It is about speaking their language, not them trying to learn how to speak our language. Let's dive into that. You probably have lots of tips on understanding horses. Make I know it's supposed to be simple, but it's not easy. The philosophy of horse and rider, the partnership, the communication. I know I'm throwing a lot at you. I know that's a massive topic, but I'd love to kind of touch on that a little bit, just so people understand the true communication with horse and rider.
Yeah, so it does have a whole bunch of layers. And, one of the challenges to my job is to try to join the people and the horses together in some fashion that works for them. And what also is a challenge is my style of horsemanship and what I've been taught is a little bit like this world over here. And then the main infrastructure of the horse world is over here. And I'm not saying like all of the stuff, but like say you're beginning to almost intermediate student with hardly any education, they kind of live over here in this world. It's not bad, it's not wrong, but it's definitely different than what I teach. So it's like trying to move them over here is one piece. But then when they're kind of over here in this world, it's like, well, how do you get like the horse and the human to connect? Because what I see a lot of times is, and this is probably with just about anything, is if you don't know what you're doing and you're trying to do it, you're probably going to be operating through instinct first. It's like, what's your gut feeling? I'm going to try this. Well, with horses and horsemanship, that normally that gut feeling is opposite, almost exactly opposite of what you actually need to do. Because the horses, in that same scenario, you're operating through instinct, so they're probably going to be operating through instinct. Well, those two instincts are opposite for the most part. A real easy example is like when a horse panics, they typically run or spook or something, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
moving to protect themselves. Where a human in a similar situation is probably going to freeze. They may panic to some extent, but a human very rarely is going to run like a quarter mile to protect themselves. They may jump
Mm-hmm.
out of the way or swoop, but then they're probably going to hide or hold or grab or something. So the instincts from the very foundation are very different. And that also then goes into like, how do they think? How do they react? What is their reward system? And typically, when a person's operating through instinct, they're trying to train the horse more like they would want to be trained, which typically doesn't work. That doesn't mean there's not things that overlap or that the horse can adapt to, but instinctually, it's just the core foundation. We're so different. So, my job is to kind of cross that bridge with everybody. Say, hey, let's come over here and try to operate this horse like a horse because this horse isn't here by choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like all the gates are locked at night. They might be in a paddock or stall or pasture, but the gates are shut. Like they did not come here on their own. It is not their choice, but
That's
you
right.
guys all did. You guys rolled in here. You bought the horse, whatever you hauled the horse. It's all us. So how can we get them to operate better? Well, is to get them wanting to do things as well and figuring out those intricacies. So I specialize a lot in the psychology, the thoughts, and the emotions of the horse. And it's not like they come out here and it's all butterflies and rainbows, but I'm coming from like the perspective of like way early on, like why does this horse want to buck instead of like let's make him not buck. It's
Mm-hmm.
like there are things I can show you to get him to not buck. I've learned a lot of those things, but could we get deeper and like get him to maybe think about why he's bucking or whatever the issue might be and get him to change his mind about that? That's where the true horsemanship starts showing up.
Making it his decision.
Yep,
And
yep,
and you use the word making the right thing feel easy and the wrong thing feel harder.
yep.
Would you mind elaborating on that? What does that mean?
Yeah, you bet. There's lots of ways that can be said, and one of the ways I like to say that, like, uh, on the base, it could be saying like, make the wrong thing difficult and the right thing easy. Okay, but to really like another good way to look at that is instead of make or let. So like you can say, make the wrong thing difficult and let the right thing be easy. You could
Love it.
say cause the wrong thing to be difficult and allow the right thing to be easy.
Oh,
And the way because if you take say a basic student, um, and say the horse is, I don't know, say he's getting gait sour. He's panicking a little bit. Okay, so a person might say, well, I'm going to make him listen. So they just take him wherever he's at, randomly grab a hold of him, try to steer him, turn him, stop him. Those are all kind of makes, right? And there's nothing
mm-hmm.
wrong with that. But like that's kind of a make situation. He's doing something I don't want. I'm going to make him listen. Okay, but then they're not really paying attention, potentially. And so the horse just kind of wanders off to the gate anyhow. And they're like, well, our lesson's over. I proved my point. So then they just let the horse just wander off back to the gate, which is the one thing they're trying to tell them not to do. But because it's 5 minutes later, they're distracted. They're not worried about it. But maybe the horse is a little quieter about it. So then there's a let. And what happens then is there's a lot of makes and lets in the horse's life, but it's not set up properly. So the horse actually starts to get worse. And it's kind of under the radar a little bit until maybe like a couple weeks later, all of a sudden there's a situation and then the horse blows up and drags you, say, to the gate. And now it's
Mm-hmm.
noticeable again, but the blow up maybe comes with a rear. So then the person's like, I need to fix the rearing,
Mm-hmm.
which might need to be done, but because all these little makes and lets have been happening, it turns into a bigger scenario. So that's just kind of one example. So what we try to do is like, okay, he wants to be at the gate. Great. We're going to cause him when he's at the gate to be busy, right? We're going to set up some circles, maybe back some circles, do some figure eights. And I always tell people he's not in trouble when we're doing that. He's not in trouble. We're
Mm-hmm.
busy. It could just be at a trot. And then as we come off away from the gate, we head towards the center of the arena. We're going to allow things to get quiet. So we're just going to pause, let that horse be. If he chooses to come to a stop out there, we'll probably pet him and be like, hey, isn't this great out here? And then he might say, you know what? I've been out here for 3 seconds. I don't want to be here because I actually want to be at the gate. So off we go. Okay, so then we're going to cause something there, and then we're going to allow something there towards, say, the center of the arena, just as an example. And then pretty soon that horse is going to start seeking that allow spot. And then once we have that concept down, it's like, well, how do we apply that to loading a horse that doesn't want to load, getting a horse to change leads that doesn't want to change leads, getting a horse to stop on a loose rein? Like, how can we start applying these principles? And the cool thing is, if you do have that foundation piece of understanding these things, then as you build into more and more lessons, you bring those earlier lessons with you, which it's not just lessons at that point. The horse has a certain level of confidence and respect and patience and focus through those lessons that come with you. And that's where the real magic starts to
And
happen.
that's when the partnership starts to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
I love that. And you do mention that horses are a mirror of us. So I'm assuming when you see a horse, like you see a lot of horses, a lot of riders, you probably immediately learn about the person. So let's dive into that. What is it about a horse that is a mirror of us?
So what I see, like, I think there's some misunderstanding out there where like the person might say, well, my horse is hyper, so if I get calm, he'll get calm. Or
Hmm.
he must have gotten excited because I got excited. Or they'll kind of think maybe there's a direct connection. And I'm not saying there never is, but I very rarely see a connection because I've been very calm on horses and had them blow up. And I've been like frantic on horses and had them remain very calm. Okay, so to me there it's at a kind of a either deeper or different level there. I think what tends to happen more so is the structure that you give a horse will cause certain tendencies. So for instance, if you do just enough to upset the horse and then quit, pretty soon he's going to start getting upset. If you do
Hmm.
just enough where the horse starts to calm down and then you quit, and he's probably going to start looking for more calm things. So I feel like the structure is more what happens around the horse. Like it's either a dependable and consistent structure or it lacks that structure. So for instance, like I might ask a student, hey, could you go lope a circle? And if the human's like, ugh, I'll see that in their horses. Not that like as soon as they ask them, the horse doesn't want to, but they're not looking at something like, yeah, I want to try this. I know I might fail, but I'm going to do this. You're here to support me. Let's work through this, all the things. Their initial response is like, oh. So I know that when I'm not around, that's probably happening. Like, let's load you in a trailer. Oh, you don't want to load. Oh,
Hmm.
right. And so that then like affects that structure that I'm talking about. So then also it's also like seems like, oh, they're a reflection of their owner and vice versa. Well, it's more about, well, because you're not willing to reach out and try harder, that horse doesn't know it's an option. So you're going to come up with an excuse. He's old, he's young, he's, this breed or that breed, or it's rainy, or he missed his dinner, or whatever the excuse starts to flow in. So then again, so the horse never really steps up. For instance, like this week, we had a Liberty class, and one of my students kept asking, well, what are the signals that you use for your hands and your whipsters and stuff to get your horses to do things? And so I explained it to her as this and that and the other, and I says, hey, how about you come in here and work Yellowstone for a minute? And as soon as she walked in that pen and gave one whip signal, she looked over at me and she's like, whoa, like I did not expect this. And I was like, what's going on? She's like, this horse is like extremely, I forget the exact word, but like powerful.
Hmm.
And what she meant is like super engaged with like the signals, like bam, that horse is ready and strong and trying. Where her horse I thought was really nice, but he like was like neutral. He's like,
Hmm.
and trotting and walking. And she'd go to trot my horse, and my horse would be like, you want trot or you want canter? Or you want walk? Like kind of a
Hmm.
different little feel there. And she's like, I didn't know you could create this in these horses. And it's like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, it's very possible. So she got a little different feel of like, okay, this is what you mean when you ask these horses to try and step up and have their own responsibility level. And this is what happens when you just allow them to make mistakes, right?
Hmm.
Instead of just let things happen, you're causing and allowing things. And it was kind of cool for her to get a feel for that, because until you've actually felt it, it's really hard to describe and get an actual handle on those things.
Hmm.
Yeah,
It's beautiful, and it's becoming a leader and coming first with that energy. It's like
absolutely.
this is what we want. This is what we're going to do together. I
Yeah,
love
for
that.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And mistakes. What are some of the mistakes that horse owners make that you see time over time?
Um, I would say probably for my students, the main mistake they make is a lack of confidence. And maybe it's not an actual mistake because it's like just a state of being. And because they lack confidence, their timing is off, their focus is off, their feel
Hmm.
is off. And if they were confident in what they were doing, they might hang in there a little longer. They might want to work through that mistake. They might think ahead to maybe they could avoid the mistake because they understand the pattern where that mistake gets developed. Like they know if that horse ends up wanting to go to that gate, he might do his rearing thing that I talked about earlier and take you there anyhow. So how can I structure my day so that maybe that doesn't happen? How about we start at the gate with the warm up instead of start in the middle with the warm up, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever that might look like. Maybe at the end of the day, I stop in the middle of the arena on purpose and get off of them instead of just riding out the gate, or whatever may, start setting things up. So they set it up differently. So then their confidence is higher and then it doesn't get blown. I would say the other big mistake there is not taking the time to truly understand what a horse is.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a constant journey. It's just not just like an afternoon discussion or something that you might read in a book, but the more that they can truly understand what makes a horse tick, their actual inner desires and the things that make them want to go and try and not try, if they can understand that system, the communication with a horse should be so much easier for them. But most people, particularly in the beginning, they operate from such a human standpoint, and it's tough on the horses, because I'll see people, they're talking to their horse a whole bunch, but it's like talking to a dog that's running the other way. They're just calling the name and that dog's not recalling. So the words are there, the efforts are there, but nothing's landing and
Mm-hmm.
grabbing that dog back for real. So they're talking a lot when they don't need to, like, because they get frustrated, and things like that. So that all starts to get in there and affect lots of different things, and then it just starts to fall apart because they're coming too strong from the human perspective. Yep.
That makes sense. And one thing you wish every horse owner would stop doing, is it cuddling their horse, treating their horse? What is it? What is that one behavior that horse owners maybe do too much that you wish they just would stop? Like one thing. What would that be?
The number one thing I think would benefit people, particularly in the beginning, is I call it spoiling, like less spoiling of the horse. And I'm like, I let them know, it's like there's a difference. Like, I want you to care for your horse, yes, but spoiling is more like not drawing the lines and boundaries consistently for that horse. And it doesn't even mean being hard on the horse at all. It just means providing the structure so that horse understands their job. Because what happens then, they spoil the horse, then the lines are blurred. Then when someone comes up, whether it's them or somebody else, and they try to draw a line for that horse, like, no, we need to actually do this over here, then it's this big old frustration and blow up and whatever else comes with it. And if they'd have just kind of kept things a little more structured, doesn't mean there's still no confusion or anything, but it's going to be a way easier process to get that horse to comply with whatever they need to be. And it's not just about being hard or not hard. It's like, well, what's the emotional stress on that horse when he's trying to figure out this new situation because you haven't set boundaries for him earlier on. So
Mm-hmm. So setting boundaries
yeah,
is important. And
yeah.
I get this I get sometimes people, oh, you have horses, that's amazing. My daughter loves horses. I'm thinking of getting a horse for her. And my
Hmm.
response is like, just know it's not a dog or a cat. You don't just
Yeah,
get a
for sure.
horse. What are
Yeah,
some
it's
of the
different.
advice you would give to people if they want to get horses for their children or even get into horses? Of course, things that I would kind of think about is like, figure out get your horse to the level that you are of expertise, maybe your goals and so forth. What are some of
Hmm.
the other things that you would suggest and advise people when they're thinking of getting a horse?
I would say probably the number one thing is find somebody that you can lean on that is good in the industry. And that could be your next door neighbor. It could be a trainer in the neighborhood that you've done research on. It could be a clinician or someone that kind of knows, and then bounce all these questions off of them. They're going to guide you most of the time in the right direction. And I see a lot of people, they try to do this all on their own. And it's not that they're not good at making decisions. They're probably very good in certain areas of their life. But the horses is such a different deal, from everything from their feed and nutrition to feet to saddles and breeds and how to ride and not all. There's so many levels to all of this. Like, The easiest and cheapest thing to do is purchasing the horse. You can get on like Craigslist or whatever your local
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like you can get a horse in one day, no problem, particularly if you're willing to drop some money. And even if you were to spend 10, 20, 30, 50,000, whatever dollars, it is still the cheapest part of this whole thing. So making sure you get into the right horse and do all these things. Like I see so many people like they might get a good deal on a horse, but it's not trained to the level that's safe for them or whatever, so they end up dropping the money and do it anyhow. Now maybe that's their plan because they're like, I like this horse, I want to raise it, and that, you know, and that's one thing. But if they're trying to cut corners and then they're throwing the money in anyhow, they might have been better off just dropping that $10,000, 20 in training into a pre-trained horse. Now that also has risks or whatever as well, but you know, at least having that discussion with a trainer or clinician or somebody like, hey, this is what I want to do. What are my options? And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times, it's surprising what like that mentorship will do for you. And I know, like, for the kids that come around me, there's a lot of times, like, we can save them so much time and money and effort. It might take a little bit of patience, but we can get them into the right thing. You know, like, I've had kids like, hey, I'm looking for a new horse, or they might not even mention it. Like, I had this one gal one time, I didn't even know she was looking for a new horse. We had like 8 horses here in training. One of the absolute worst horses here in training that I'd probably never ever recommend to anybody. Not that it was a horrible horse, but it wasn't suitable for anybody that was around here. We were just getting the time in on this thing. She comes around the corner and is like, hey, I just bought a horse. I was like, what? Like,
Surprise.
which horse? Oh, the such and such, because the lady was here to pick it up, and she's like, well, I don't really like this horse, you know, and it, like this deal happened behind the barn. I didn't even know about it. And then for like years, that horse wreaked havoc on this girl. Like it just was a horrible match. But she never even like, hey, boss, what do you think? I was thinking, like none
Mm-hmm.
of that occurred. Okay, so then it was this kind of a long road of suffering for them because they just weren't a good match.
Mm-hmm.
Then I've had other kids, like I had this one. She's like, hey, I'm looking for a horse. Could you help me out? And I'm like, sure, we'll start looking. It might take a little bit, but sometimes we come across stuff. Next thing you know is like 6 months later, she was looking for like a all bay mare with a certain level of training or whatever. And I called her up. I says, hey, there's this black and white gypsy vanner gelding at this clinic. He's going to be perfect for you. It's nothing what you're looking like, but I've handled him. I think this is going to be great. And he was like
Wow.
he was a good deal. He had a very fixable problem. He had a bolting issue, but he's a draft horse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
He's
so
not
it's
bolting
like
very fast.
the way we go to like he doesn't have enough air. It's not like we're buying an off the track thoroughbred with a bolting issue or something.
Yes.
So easy problem to fix, cheaper price, beautiful animal, resale value. He's sturdy, you know, all these good qualities. And she just loved this horse. And they went on to do some amazing things. She won horse shows with him, and she, you know, learned to ride a lot better on it. Like lots of good things came from this. She'd ride into somewhere, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, that's such a cool horse!" So now she's making friends because she has this horse. You
Yeah.
know, all this stuff started to happen, and it's all because she kind of waited for a little recommendation and something that stepped up, but she trusted in the process, and she's
Mm-hmm.
done that now several times working through me, like how do we, you know, find these little avenues, and I kind of give her a little nudge that way, and off she goes, and now she's made some very, very good decisions for her horse career.
That's a beautiful thing, and that's when you start enjoying riding. That's when you start enjoying your horse,
Absolutely.
because you're putting in that, and you're getting the right horse for you. I have a question. It's really unpopular, and I think not enough people speak about this. What about the weight of the rider, the type of a horse? Of course, there's got to be some kind of a compromise. There has to be something that works there. What rider maybe is too heavy for a certain horse? How does that work?
Yeah, so you know, I'm not a vet or anything, but there are certain percentages that a horse can handle well, you know, and by the time you calculate the weight of your tack, the weight of the rider, the in shapeness of the horse, and things like that, I think that does come into play. So I don't like to overload the horses at all. So like if you're a bigger person, just get a bigger horse and, you know, not try to overload these horses. Now at the same time, a sturdy, athletic, muscular little horse can do oftentimes a lot more than we might think. but I still wouldn't want to go too crazy on the overload with them. It's harder for them to get around and things like that. So that's kind of the other side of the horsemanship.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen some clients not be good at this, and I've seen some clients be really good at this, um, taking care of themselves to be able to do the things they want. If
Mm-hmm.
you're, say your skeleton is designed and framed to be like 180 pounds, but you're going to go skiing, but you're 320 pounds. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
fine to be 320, but if you're supposed to be close to 180 and then you're going to go skiing, like, that's probably not even going to happen. Like, a person in that boat probably honestly wouldn't even bother going to go. Okay. But um, if they wanted to go skiing, they were like, let's get down to at least 220 or
Mm-hmm.
something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think if a person takes it upon themselves, if they're, and it doesn't even have to be weight, it could be, am I in shape? Am I focused? Am I educated enough? Whatever those pieces need to be. And if they're lacking in any of those areas, they try to increase that, or like in this case, like decrease their weight if it's possible, so that they can enjoy the horse and the whole situation better. Then it just works out for everybody. And I've seen some clients, I almost don't even recognize them. They like do whatever, I don't know what they do, if they exercise or just change their diet or whatever, and they show up and they're like killing it. Like, they've dropped 50 pounds or whatever, and they feel better, their horses are moving better, and it just works out really good. And I know that's not an option for everybody, but when I see that work, I'm like, this is a great deal for them. So
That's beautiful because it is a sport, and we do have to consider that as a sport. And of course, we have a living thing that we are on, and putting that
mhm.
weight on them. So thank you so much for touching on that. I know not enough people speak about that, but I think it is important for the health of the horse. And what
Yeah,
about
for sure.
tack?
Because
Recommendation for tack?
yeah, so the tack is important. I like, one thing that's nice about my job is, like, there's some places I go, I'll see over 30 head of horses saddled for the week, and I get to watch them all move and ride in their tack, different breeds, different types of riders, all the things. And it's incredible for to see how little good equipment there is in the market. And it could be brand new equipment that's not good, it could be old equipment that's not good, but there are very few brands of tack that are actually high quality, high functioning, safe, etc. So I don't know what the numbers are, and I'm not going to throw out a bunch of names, but I bet maybe 10%, maximum of 20% of all the tack on the market is even worth looking at and using,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. And that could be English and Western, across
Mm-hmm.
the board. 10 to 20% is like stuff that I'd actually want to put on my horses. Um, so I myself ride in a particular brand of saddle, which I feel has like about a 90% fit rate, and it helps me ride. I feel about 20 to 30% better because I feel good. I sit well on it. The horses feel better in it, so I feel they're riding at 20 to 30% better. So all of a sudden, everybody's just feeling better, moving better, doing better. We want to do more, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
I've got some other tack, that maybe older tack that I bought that was expensive and it's custom and all the stuff, but it just doesn't fit the horse as well, it doesn't fit me as well. So then my rideability's down, the horse feels a little less. Can we still train? Absolutely. But when you're talking 20, 30% difference, that's a
It's a
big
lot.
hit.
Yeah.
That's like, if you're at 100%, now you could be at 70.
Yeah.
And like, heaven forbid, if you were at 70 to start, now you're down to 40. Like, this is like, can be super detrimental real quick. So I ride what's called a continental saddle. There's other good saddles on the market, but for me, that's what works. I've got hundreds and hundreds of clients that have gotten into those, and they just have a really high success rate. And then especially once they get in and like put the miles on those rigs, they can feel the difference in them and their horses. And then same with the head stalls and bits and all the things. Like, I have a special line of snaffle bits I like to sell my clients. We ride in special reins. All these things come back to help, because let's say you're riding at 30% of your potential future, right? You're just learning and going. You're like, okay, you're starting to pick it up, but you're at 30%, but then you got crappy reins, you got a crappy bit, you got a crappy saddle. You're at 30, well, now you're at 20 or 15. Now you're
Hmm.
just deficit, like you're crashing. But if you're at 30, but then you get a good saddle, and you get a good reins, and things feel better, and you get more confident, and all of a sudden you're up to 40, but you're really a 30, and now, but then your confidence is up, so now you're 50, and then all of a sudden you're setting your sights and you're going because you're not falling off that saddle every other week because it don't fit your horse, and you're not getting bucked off that horse every other
Yeah.
week because it's pinching them, and all
Yeah.
these things start to happen. And I don't think people, one is just lack of experience, they don't really know. But and it's not that more money means things will be better, but let's say it costs you an extra $20 for those reins or an extra $1,000 for that saddle. If you're going to be riding or doing a certain amount with that
Hmm.
horse, all of a sudden it starts paying for itself and you get headed in the right direction. But that's again where that mentorship comes in. Like they're going to have those answers for you to help you out.
Hmm. And I find it can be overwhelming. Like you said, there is so much stuff out there. And from what I'm understanding, like less is more almost. Like you don't have to be tying down your horse. You don't have to be doing these. You don't have to be doing, there's a lot of stuff that you don't need. You just
Yeah,
need the basics and being a good horse person and coming in there,
absolutely.
having the right training, having somebody that's going to help you through it. You don't need to make the horse do something, be a partnership. So that's kind of what I'm understanding from our conversation. It's not just about the tack, it's about the horsemanship first. The tack is also just supporting you with those percentages and making you a better
Absolutely.
rider, making you more comfortable and more confidence.
Yeah, yeah, I know, like for sure out here, like when people come and they see the tack room that I have, they're not disappointed. It's like, oh, this is a nice tack room, it's custom, whatever, but
Where's the
it's
rest?
pretty boring in there. It's like it's boring. It's like where's all the secret bits and bridles? And I have several, but like when you really get down to it, there's not a whole lot going on in there. There's like a couple of things that I use every day. And then there's some that maybe I've collected or whatever that are just kind of off in the corner, but you can tell I don't use them much. But overall, I mean, if I grabbed everything I needed to train a horse today, there's probably like five core pieces I'd always grab. Like they're mostly like lead ropes and stuff, but it might be 20 pieces of tack total. That could be even high, and I'd still have extra stuff I'm not needing that day for training a horse, and that's the whole thing: blanket, pads, saddle, bridle. Like probably throw a brush in there as one of the items. Like it's not much that I use particularly. Now doesn't mean I haven't used other things or that some other things could assist, but for the core program on 90% of the horses, there's not a whole lot that's required because we're working a lot on the psychology. So.
I love that. I absolutely love it. And you have a young lady that's helping you out. Her name is Callie. She's hopefully your future protege. She's absolutely fabulous. She helps you with some of those horses and some of the young horses even. And I think she's becoming a wonderful rider and a wonderful horse person. And I asked her, I'm like, aren't you scared? I asked her, I'm like, Callie, like you get on these young horses, like, aren't you scared? And she's like, not anymore, because now I know what to expect. And she's, of course, like you are there to help her every step of the way as well. Let's kind of touch on that because I love that and it resonated with me and I just want to expand on that because I know what to expect. So she's been around,
Mm-hmm,
a couple of years now with you
mm-hmm.
and helping you out. And I know you took her in as well. So let's touch on that and what she said and what she's referring to.
Yeah, so when she first came here, she was in like that other horse world that we talked about earlier. And she was a good rider. She could sit on a horse. She was pretty brave about most things, but her knowledge base as far as education, like specifics, was limiting. She could saddle and ride and that sort of thing and go, but the technicals weren't really there. So we started easing into it and working on things, and I kind of do situations like that, just like the horses. Like if you want to be at the gate, okay, it's going to be a little harder, and if you come over here, it's going to be a little easier. So most kids in the beginning, they're like a little bit, and I'm not saying she was totally this way, but it's like, okay, that's what Steve said, but this is what I'm going to do, right? So Steve said, we get these colts started, we do all this groundwork, we balance them out, we flag them, we do all these things. We put a ride or two in the round pen, then we get out and we go on in the big arena, we go out on the trail. But what ended up happening was she's like, no, I don't want to follow that system. It's too dangerous to take these horses in the big arena if we're starting them early. It's too dangerous to get them out on the trail. I'm going to stick in the round pen. So I just let her stay at the gate, the round pen being the gate. Like, okay, she
Mm-hmm.
wants to, because I understand from her perspective, it seems dangerous, these new colts or whatever. Well, over the next couple months, she had more wrecks and more buck offs and everything in the round pen
Oh my
than
gosh.
anywhere else because she feels like the round pen's safer, but the horses are getting locked up and they're getting confused and they're doing, all these little things start happening, even though she's like, I'm sheltered, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what she found out is if she just prepares these horses properly, the way I was trying to show her, it creates this window of opportunity. You use that window of opportunity, go to the arena. That window of opportunity, get out on the trail. Well, now that horse's confidence comes up. Your confidence comes up. You grow together quicker. Then, like, you can go back to the round pen if you want or back out or whatever, but you're riding this whole different animal. It has purpose to go with the principles. It's curious because it's going and doing things, all these things. All of a sudden, she's not having wrecks anymore. But it took that time to kind of resist the program a little bit because it kind of didn't make sense. But now
Mm-hmm.
I look at her, she's out of that round pen as quick as safe, like 3, 4, 5 ride, whatever, like early. She's hitting the trail early. She's doing different things early and everything's safer because she's back to like, what am I riding? Well, I'm riding a horse, and a horse needs to go and it needs to
Mm-hmm.
reach and expand. And so now she's going with them. So she's having way less problems with them. And it's been a neat process to see. And, I could force that, not force, but like, hey, you have to do
Mm-hmm.
this or whatever. But by letting her just like falter a little bit, like
Make the
how did
mistakes.
those last three
Yeah.
weeks treat you in that round pen? Was it as safe as you thought it would be?
Yeah.
And that stuff's memorable for them because their
Yeah.
body's involved in that process and their mind and all the frustration, whatever that may or may not come with it. And that's part of their education. And then now I see like the way she thinks and the way she analyzes and the way she plans and preps. I see it in a lot of other areas of her life as well. She's bringing these principles and parts of the program with her. And then to see her like interact with new horses as they come through is pretty cool to see. So I'm
Yeah.
excited about her future if she chooses to keep going with all this
Yeah.
stuff.
She's doing an incredible job. I love watching her, and she's so brave. And again, because you've let her make those mistakes, right? And that's a
Yeah,
beautiful
yeah.
thing. And I think there's a lesson in human nature here as well, which I love. So I get this all the time. It's like people ask me, they're like, so what do you ride, Western or English? And I honestly never know how to answer that. It's like, well, I have a saddle for both, but is it just all horsemanship? Like, unless you're competing, I guess, or whatever it is. But like, I honestly don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, it is incredible how similar all of these things are. Like the way you maybe sit on a reining horse versus a dressage horse is actually pretty similar. To execute certain maneuvers, are you going to kind of ride slightly different? A
Hmm.
little. But at the end of the day, is the horse centered? Are they balanced? Are they mentally with you? Are they structurally sound and moving equally? Like these are all principles that work in all the disciplines, and you either have it or you don't. So, like at the end of the day, to say they're separate or different, I think would be almost a narrow-minded, not necessarily uneducated, but kind of a narrow perspective,
Hmm.
because there are so many similarities. And I've been fortunate enough, I get a mixture of students. I get lots of English riders, I get lots of Western riders, I get trail riders, I get arena riders, I get all this mixtures of things. And at the end of the day, the entire program that I teach can benefit all of them. And then I just tell them, like, look, say you are actually going on to, like do specific dressage tests and specific maneuvers, or you're going to go show this horse in the reining or something. At that point, sure, like go find someone that's super specialized in that area, or I can help you as far as we can we can get you real close where you need to be there. And then you can get those little specifics that are needed. But there's so much of this that is good for people and the horses all the way across the board. Because I've seen like horses that are shoved down a pipe this way, like you must be a jumping horse and you must be a
Mm-hmm.
reining, or you have to be. And from like almost the first ride, they're over fences or they're trying to stop the horse or whatever. And they're potentially, by being pushed down that lane, there's little pieces that they've missed. Like they maybe didn't get that gait education that they needed. So they're always slightly gait sour, even though they're learning these maneuvers. And then I see these show horses with a basic thing like that. All of a sudden they get to the show, they're ready to like go kill it because they've learned all this cool stuff and they're doing really well. But then the horse is like, you know what? I still have this residual gait sour issue. So all of a sudden, just getting the reining horse in or out of the arena is a pain in the ass. Getting
Mm-hmm.
that jumping horse in or out of the arena or warm-up pen is super difficult, to the point that they can't show the horses
Mm-hmm.
because the horse is mentally blown on things they didn't even think they needed to address, but are now becoming a huge issue at the horse show. Where if that had just been part of their foundation early on, instead of just completely crammed down this lane, everything would have been fine. Now, that doesn't mean they're not building good horses or whatever, but since every horse is different, maybe 2 out of 10 horses start to falter because their program's not wide enough, so they just drop off. Where they could actually still keep those horses in the program with just a little bit of mixture in there, and they go on and potentially be some of the best horses in the barn.
Mm-hmm. And that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, you're right. Because you were writing like 11, 1,200 pound animals that are basically prey instincts. And we're like,
Yep,
okay, yes. So start with the basics, starts with the horsemanship, starts with everything else. And then you can do whatever discipline you want to do, whatever competitions you want to do, whatever you want to focus on. So I love that. And it
absolutely.
does start with the horsemanship, and it does start with that, going kind of back to basics and learning about the horse,
Yep.
the partnership, and exactly what we were just talking about. And you've mentioned before, horses are our teachers. So even in life, let's just remove ourselves from the horse world. And it's like, okay, what are horses teaching us to be successful people, to be successful partners, to be successful friends in terms of confidence, emotional control, personal power, personal discipline, patience, and all of those things? Because you can't fake it with a horse. You said that. And so let's talk about that. Like, I mean, I think horses can teach us so much about who we are and how we can be better people.
Yeah, so it's, and that, back to Callie, we were talking about, those are more of the lessons that I try to teach. Like I'm not out there harping on her every day, like fix your hands, sit up straight, heels down. Like we do some of that, and I help with that when I can, but it's more like, you know, did you make a good plan? Like, and why did you form that plan? And what was the result of your plan? And like, do you have enough structure? Does your horse understand the overall concept for the day? It's more kind of stuff like that, or like, oh, that really sucks. You didn't make a plan at all, and look what happened here. Like, can I help pick you up or whatever? But like, you got here, and then it's like, how can we restructure this when we get a chance for the next time? So that
Mm-hmm.
this doesn't happen. Like, it really sucks that you tied that horse next to that other horse. What did we learn from that? Or, just little things like that, and get their brain ticking and thinking. Because there's so many lessons, like you said, in the horse world. And I think one of the hardest things for people, because I've had different ones, it's like, and this is probably just for anything in life, is like just showing up like focused and strong and resilient and flexible and mindful and all these things that come into it, to be able to show up every day as a trainer, as a coach, as a clinician, as a colt starter, or whatever their little avenue is, and building that consistency and that resiliency. Because and like learning, like one of the biggest things for people wanting to be in the horse industry is like, you are going to get knocked over, you're going to get knocked down, you're going to get run over, and it's not always going to be from the horse. Okay. But what can you do to be like, we're moving on, we're
Getting
building
back on
stronger,
the
we're
horse,
we're
so to
getting back
speak.
on the horse, like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And all those lessons that come into it. And I really try to focus on that with anybody that's around me in the long haul, because that's what it's going to take to survive. Like, you can fall in love with all the movies you want and have the great mentors, but if you don't have those core pieces in you, it'll fall apart as soon as that mentor disappears or you forget about that movie. Like all these things will be gone, but then you'll be dealing with whatever else. So if you can just double down
Mm-hmm.
and keep learning from these horses, as best you can, it'll go stronger. And a lot of my horsemanship principles, like I talked about, partly my parents, partly my mentors and things. One of the cool things I have with my job is I get to see sometimes in person, like almost 1,000 head of horses a year with people attached to them. So there's a lot of like learning for me, just seeing how all that works, making a judgment call when I see that horse enter the arena with a horse. And like, I think this is this type of horse or this type of person, and then seeing how that evolves. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. And then it's like, why was I wrong or why was I right? And studying all that over and over and over and over again. And a lot of it's just watching these horses and how they change and interact. And constantly am I always like, okay, I know a lot, but what could I know better? What could I know more? So I'm constantly always looking at situations like, what if I tweak this or tweak that? And a lot of it's just off of like, what is the horse showing me
Mm-hmm.
to say that this could be better or better for this horse or better for this moment? But a lot of that's from like seeking it from the horses and watching how they're responding to certain things and not just being like bullheaded, like this is the way it is. It's like, well, maybe it is that way for certain things, but what could be different here? And how can we evolve this program, over the next 5 years and decade and things like that?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the discipline that we have to bring forth and the things that we have to bring are patience. And I've learned that there's no time with horses. Like a horse will show you what
Mm-mm.
they need to work on, and you can't rush that. Sometimes you just have to
No,
work
no.
through it. And all of a sudden you had this one thing, you're like, okay, I'm going to be focusing on this today. And the horse is like, nope, we're going to be focusing on this. You're like,
Yeah, we're
okay,
over
that's
here.
what we're just switching and adapting. And there's no time. And it's creating that patience. And it's a beautiful thing for sure. And I think I've learned a lot about that from my horse mostly. And it is a beautiful thing, but it's still learning. I feel like that's never going to stop. So now, Steve, what legacy would you like to leave in the horse world moving forward?
Ooh, that's a tough one
It
there.
is, isn't it?
Honestly, I think, the way I've been years ago when I first started teaching, I was like, all right, there's all these great clinicians already out there. I'm joining the band. All these things are happening. I was like, I bet in like 10, 15 years, the world's going to be so educated, they're not going to need any of us, and we're all just going to live happily ever after. We'll go get jobs at Starbucks or whatever's happening because they won't need us.
You'll make a great barista.
Yeah. What have actually happened, I feel like there are parts of the horse world that are definitely more educated now. They're stronger, like there are parts that have grown. But I would say, and maybe I just didn't know enough back then, but there are large parts of the horse industry that are almost like less educated or knowledgeable or what have you. And I would have thought that would have grown with
Mm-hmm.
over the last decade or two or three or four. But I feel like there's still huge gaps out there. So as far as a legacy, like what I would like to see is like how large of a group of people can I move in what I think is like the right direction so that as time evolves, those people are there as a resource, whether it's just for themselves and their friends or other people to come in and keep expanding it. But if I can just educate the overall base, and it's not about like being on a mission to like I must educate, but what really drives me is like I want them to feel what I feel. I want them to experience what I've experienced, and that's why I want to spread it. And if they don't have a certain amount or type of education, I kind of feel like they're going to miss that. So by getting that education into them, I feel like they're going to get those experiences and then feel like better about everything. And it's like the gal that was in the Liberty pen with my horse the other day. Like until she stepped in, she'd been watching this horse and me for a couple days. But then as soon as she was actually in the pen with that horse, she could feel the difference. And it's like that's what we're looking for. And so if they can, gain some of those pieces for the future, I think it'd be great.
I love that. And I love what you're doing. Somebody at camp said, "Oh yeah, Steve is getting really popular." I was talking to a friend and they're also coming to camp and all these different things. And I'm like, "Well, that is wonderful because more people should know horsemanship. More people should do it correctly. More people should know how to communicate with the horse because that is a better partnership, safety reasons, and in
Hmm.
general, just enjoyment. And it's better for the horse. It's better for everybody that we are aware of that we are getting exposed, that we are learning, and we are seeking the help because it doesn't have to be a problem horse. It's just in general horsemanship because those
Yeah.
problems could develop or whatever it is. So it's really important to just kind of continue with that education. And for me, I'm going to be a lifelong student. So that's something that's I just feel like I still have moments of freezing when I'm scared. I still have moments that I'm like, holy cow, I forgot my training. So it's really important to kind of go back
Hmm.
and refresh myself. Now, Steve, what horse has changed you the most and why?
Yeah, that book that you may or may not have just read. Yep, The Untrainables. That buckskin mare, that's an actual picture of her on that cover there, is Sage. And I ended up writing a whole book about her, but that mare changed my life completely. And like I tell people at the time, I could go in to a wild horse adoption. So 60 random wild horses arrive in a town straight off the range of Oregon deserts, and I could go in and just like any horse there, if I had a couple hours, I could take probably 90% of them, like one of them, just random 90%, and be on their back in like 2 hours with some
Mm-hmm.
groundwork and all the stuff that goes on in the pen there at that same time. So I'm feeling like, okay, I'm getting pretty good with these horses, at least the wild ones. I couldn't even get that mare caught, and if I got her caught, I couldn't get her worked. If I maybe barely get her saddled or rode, and then she'd be bucking me off every other day. It's like struggled. Yet I could, the very next day roll into like an adoption or wherever and like be super successful with these horses, and then come home and work with this horse, and it's just horrible. So she really made me dig deeper, try harder, have more understanding, not try to cram a horse into a box, make sure I'm
Mm-hmm.
covering my bases, make sure like we're getting the lessons for sure, not just like, did she back, did she turn? It's like, well, is she confident? Is she trying? Is she focused? Not just the maneuvers and things like that. How she like became one of the best horses I've ever had. So it's
Wow.
pretty cool.
It's an incredible book. I have a couple of quotes that I want to read before I let you go, and I highly suggest it. And if anybody knows me, I'm not a big reader. Like I'm more of an audible type of person because I like to be multitasking in my car and stuff like
Hmm.
this. But this book is incredible, and I would highly suggest it. So a few quotes because I think it's not just about horses. It's not just for horse people. It's really about life, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful story. So I love it. You see, I've like I have it all bookmarked and everything. It's
I like
just
that.
beautiful.
That's great.
I love it. I'm digesting it like you wouldn't believe. So one quote that really resonated with me: "Sometimes growth comes from discomfort," and I absolutely love that quote. Did you want to just quickly touch on that?
Yeah, so in that book, we talk about so many different periods of times where like things were uncomfortable, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally. Maybe plans didn't come through, maybe it was financially, maybe it was structural, like just different things. A lot of it was specifically related to her and me and the interactions that we were going through. But understanding how, like I was saying earlier, if you just show up every day, dig in and try with the tools that you have, how eventually things will evolve. And that's essentially like one of the things that happened there is I just kept showing up, and then she started showing up, and then that evolution began. But if I'd have just taken the trauma or the suffering or whatever and just let that be, that's maybe where we would end.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's like, okay, that was yesterday or the day before, like, let's keep marching forward. And, oh, here it is again. But what about tomorrow? If I hadn't had that mindset, it wouldn't have happened. And, one of the driving forces I had there was my mentors. And if I didn't have the mentors I had, I would never have stayed with that mare.
Mm-hmm.
But the mentors I had is like, we've never found a horse this doesn't work on. Never, ever. And they're talking tens of thousands of horses. And so I'm like, I'm quitting this mare. This is the one. And I was like, but wait, they've never found one. Why am I, how could I be that selfish with this horse that has so much potential? Like, it's about me and I need to find the way.
Mm-hmm.
So that stuck with me instead of saying, oh, she doesn't shove down this pipe or this alley. Well, she wasn't. Well, how could we change things a little bit so that maybe she can go over this way? And that really helped me out. And yeah, there was a lot of suffering there, but it all paid off in the long run.
It's so beautiful, and it makes you the horseman and the teacher that you are. Some of the other things that kind of related to this that I love the quotes for is challenges aren't the enemy, they are the path, and you can't force trust. And those
Mm-hmm.
things really resonated with me, and I just couldn't put it down. Like I'm like late nights here because I'm like reading this book. I'm like, this is amazing.
That's great.
So beautiful book, and I highly recommend it to everybody. You also have an amazing YouTube channel. So if people wanted to get some resources and kind of learn about your tactics and learn and start applying things to horses, you have a master class. You have one ride away. You have an
Mm-hmm.
app that's in beta version right now. It's coming up, which
Yep.
I on
Mm-hmm.
Android I wasn't able to download it yet, but send me the links. I'd love to include it so people can start checking it out
You
if you
bet.
don't mind. I think it'll be a beautiful thing. Tell us a little bit about the app because I tried to explain it to a friend and I think you would do it better.
Yeah, so I wanted a little something like, this day and age, like if you walk literally anywhere on this planet and there's 100 people that you walk by, 90 of them are going to be on their phone. All right, it doesn't matter what they're doing. If they're sitting in the airport or at the coffee shop or whatever, they got their phones out. So I was like, I need to get in there. That's where I need a resource that's in there because everybody's in their phone. So I was like, one of the ways is to build an app. So I invested a lot of time and effort into that. And what it is I just wanted like a source for people to have a little bit of extra education, motivation, or tips. Like there's spots in there where you get exactly that, a daily tip, a daily motivation, a daily education. There's ways to interact there, like how was your ride and how are you feeling today and how's your horse's balance and what are your goals for today and something to kind of keep pulling them back, whether it's to the app or like for themselves. Like some people thrive on that structure. Oh, I wrote it down, therefore it will be. Or if I didn't write it down, maybe it
Mm-hmm.
won't be, that sort of thing. And there's a community aspect in there. It's kind of like a Facebook, but just within the app, like just horse people. So it's like you can get that at other places, but like it's just our horse people. And I really think that like my community is very strong. And it's like a place where they can gather and stick together if they want, is in there. And then there's also a GPS section to track your ride. Similar to maybe some other apps that are out there on the market, but I wanted to like add that to this, like have it available if you want to use it within this app so they can track where they're going and how the rides have gone and all those things. And then like keep track of your horses in there. You can have more horses and they can have profiles and just a whole bunch of different stuff in there to just kind of keep people activated and engaged. And then there's obviously a lot of education in there. There's the daily stuff, but we'll have programs or longer videos and medium length videos and stuff where people are like, I just want to know more today, or I'm having this problem. Maybe I can go to the app and just pull up a 5-minute video, sit down and watch it, maybe get a little idea, maybe get a little confidence, something, but it's a resource that's sitting there. It's not just some random video game or whatever. It's a tool that they can kind of use to help in their horsemanship journey.
I love it. I can't wait to get started on that also. And of course, people can find you online. You have a beautiful YouTube channel, like I mentioned, website, and so forth. So I'll make sure I'll put all the links below.
Yep.
And yeah, I just think more people should, and I'm not shooting on anybody, but they really should help their
Should.
horses by helping themselves. And I got a little emotional at camp because I did it. I do it because I need to be better for my horse. I do the difficult things because I want to do better. I want to be better for him because I love him so much. And for me, that's my driving factor. I'm not saying he should do better. It's me. I need to do
Mm-hmm.
better for him. I need to better by him. So when I'm challenged, when I'm scared, when I don't want to do something because it's uncomfortable, I think about it. I need to do it for him. And
Yeah.
I feel like everybody should have that perspective and really, really focus on what they can do for the horse and bringing that horse first by improving themselves. So I love that. And I
Sure.
think more people should get to know you and get to know your beautiful way of horsemanship and learning from you. So I really appreciate your time. And I know you're busy with clinics and camps and all these different things in your travel. And so I really appreciate you being on here. Thank you so much, Steve.
It's been great. And I wanted to say before we leave, like just off the last thing that you had said about you wanting to be better and stuff. I know when you were just here a few weeks ago, um, it had been, I forget exactly how long, but it's been a few years
Yeah.
since I've seen you. And you have done just that. To see the evolution in you and your horse just really makes me happy. Like, I'm like, you've been out there practicing and working so hard. And I remember the first time you brought that horse, that I got to see that horse. Um, he really is one of the special horses out there. I like all horses, but he's like that next tier up of like, you know what? This is a horse that's worth putting time into,
Yeah.
worth investing in, worth building. He's his own unique animal for sure, and there's qualities about him that you just about won't find in other horses. And that I love seeing stuff like that when you've got a person like yourself that's like, look, I'm on this journey. I want more. I want to grow. And then when they're partnered with a horse that also fits that, because some horses, honestly, they're just not like, they're not athletes or they're not mentally inclined. Like they're good at whatever they do, but they're not like a growth type animal
Mm-hmm.
to a certain extent. But he definitely is. He's like, I can be a little better. I can be a little stronger. I can be a little cooler. But to be able to see that in person, uh, just recently, it really makes me happy to see where you guys have come. So,
Thank you. That means a lot. That means so much to me. Thank you for saying that. And
yeah,
again, and like it's you. When I wasn't at camp, when I wasn't at clinics, because of COVID, we couldn't travel and all these different things. It was the stuff that was online for me. I did the one ride
cool.
away. I did all these different things, and I wanted to still stay connected and still stay engaged. So I'm definitely still doing it. I just wasn't there physically. So, and I thank you for that. I really do.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Steve.
Very welcome. Well, let's keep it going.
Keep her going. Whether you are working with an 1,100, 1,200 pound horse or trying to get control of your business or relationships, it is the same game. Clarity, confidence, and consistency. I hope you got as much value from this interview as I have, and you got lots of takeaways. Before we go, I want to read a little something from the book for you guys. Sometimes the only way out is through. And when you come out the other side, whether it is with a horse, a job, or a dream, you realize that the thing you thought would break you was the thing that made you stronger. On that note, thank you so much for joining us. Till next time.